Hello, and welcome to We Speak CVE, a free podcast from the CVE Program. On this podcast, we'll talk with people from the cybersecurity community about what else, cybersecurity and vulnerability management, and the CVE catalog of vulnerabilities. If you didn't know, the CVE Program's mission is to identify, define, and catalog publicly disclosed cybersecurity vulnerabilities.
Hello and welcome to the We Speak CVE podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Sabens, and with me today I have some gentlemen who are from one of the CVE working groups, the Consumer Working Group. And I want to let them introduce themselves, and we'll talk a little bit about the topic of Consumer Working Group and its impact on the CVE program. Jay, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for having us. I'm Jay Jacobs, one of the co-chairs on the Consumer Working Group, and I'm a co-founder and data scientist at Empirical Security, creator of EPSS, and I think that's probably enough.
Hey, everybody. This is Bob Lord. I'm a senior vice president for digital security strategy at a think tank called the Institute for Security and Technology. Before that, I helped lead our Secure by Design effort over at CISA.
I'm Alec Summers. I am MITRE's CVE and CWE project lead. Been fortunate enough to work on both these things for a while now, alongside some fantastic teams at MITRE, as well as closely working with the global security community, industry, and government to improve how we identify and describe vulnerabilities and weaknesses. I'm really excited to be here with Bob and Jay, and with you, Shannon, as well.
Thank you, Alec. I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more introducing. I'd like you to introduce the concept of the working groups within the CVE programs. Tell us a little bit about some of the working groups and also, which ones are open to the public, because I know some of the working groups are open to the general public.
Yeah, absolutely. So in short, working groups are how the CVE program brings the community together to focus on the detailed collaborative work necessary to address specific program objectives. They're really designed to be, as I say, collaborative forums where people with different perspectives across the variety of stakeholder communities within CVE, including supplier CNAs, roots, tool vendors, researchers, others, all can contribute directly to the direction of the program and strengthen the program through collaboration and partnership. And as you say, some working groups are open to anyone who wants to participate. A good example is the Automation Working Group, which focuses on collaborative design and development and deployment of automated capabilities like CVE services and others. And of course, the one we're here to talk about today, the Consumer Working Group, where we're going to talk in detail. Some working groups are more restricted, for example, to only CNAs, existing program CNAs, I should say, or to working group chairs collectively, secretariat members together, that kind of thing. That mix across these working groups is intentional. Working groups have been around for a long time in helping advance this program. There's new ones that are brought up, and it really lets us keep the program open and inclusive, where broad input really matters most, while also supporting opportunities for more tailored groups to focus on, different objectives and program coordination in different sets of people.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about the idea of a consumer working group. How did that come about?
Sure. Yeah. So I went back and looked, and the dialogue about it started in February of 2024. And we've just started to get it going now. So it's been, part of a discussion for quite a while. And I think at the first time it was brought up, I was on the Automation Working Group in a meeting, and it came up as like a downstream group or something, downstream working group. Those who are consuming the data. And I thought it was really interesting, and I reached out to Chris Britton at the time, and we went back and forth on it. And there's been a couple of proposals back and forth, and part of the thing, Bob Lord and I have both been on the Automation Working Group, and through the years, we've noticed that there's been pretty heavy focus on the CNA side, and with good reason. I mean, like the CVE program wouldn't exist without the CNAs. But there's been sort of a lack of focus on the consumer side. And so this is one of the reasons that it came about, is because we really wanted to get that viewpoint of the consumer about what exactly they need, what's missing, where can we take this program. And Bob, I think you should talk about the product focus that you and I have had many discussions about.
Yeah, so I look at this. I look at the whole CVE program perhaps a little bit differently than some people. Maybe not. I tend to look at this as a product, and that sounds funny to some people because the CVEs are free and it's made by volunteers rather than a company. But I still think it's useful to adopt a product manager's mindset, and product managers want to know a lot about who the customers are. They want to know what problems they have. If you have an existing product, they want to know how the product currently helps. They want to know how it falls short and what opportunities there are to improve, but also to expand the market. And they also obsess about the customers and their needs. Hopefully, we're not overly obsessive, but maybe a little bit. And then they want to solve all the other problems. And so Jay mentioned the bias towards the upstream providers of data, and that makes total sense. But I also take a page from some of the things that we've heard coming out of places like CISA lately, where it's sort of the acknowledgement that we have spent a lot of time on the expansion of the CVE program and that we're entering a new era of quality. And I think this is part of the backdrop that makes me very interested in studying what I call customers. Jay will sometimes correct me and say it's consumers, Bob, and that's true, but I'll continue to lapse into that. So anyway, I think it's important to be able to make better decisions in the working groups, to be able to inform what we're doing with the way the world really works out in the field. And the only way we can do that is by talking to the people who are out there and understanding all of the different dynamics. Some major categories include things like the tool developers. So there are many different tools, both companies and open source providers that ingest CVE records. But then there are also the downstream folks further downstream, who are the IT defenders who are trying to build out their security programs, and they need to know how to patch. And so I think understanding those buckets, but all the other buckets that we're going to learn about over the course of the next few months, I think that's really important. So anyway, that's why I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Are there explicit goals for the Consumer Working Group?
Well, explicit, maybe. One of the challenges is that I guess it's not a challenge, it's an opportunity. We have an opportunity to evolve the goals as those shift around and we learn more. But one of the clear things that we want to do is try to capture what is important to consumers. And that actually becomes a very complicated challenge because, as you can imagine, you get 100 people on a call and you ask them what we should work on, and you might get 200 responses in a very unstructured way. And so one of the things that we're focusing on very, very early is how do we structure these requests? And so we're going to be focusing heavily on that in the next few weeks about how do we structure requests to have things better? How do we state what's really important? And then how do we put these in a list and organize and order them in a way where we can go to, the automation working group, the quality working group and others and say, this is what the consumers are asking for. This is what's really important. Here's where their pain points are. And so that's really the goal, is to try and capture the challenges that consumers are seeing and try to put them in a list and keep that list updated and keep it organized and sorted, and the good things at top, hopefully, we can focus on.
You're touching on the thing that was my next question, which is I anticipate some diversity in consumers of CVE. And so my question was going to be, do consumers of CVE want the same things?
Yeah, so I think that's a really important point. So I mentioned a couple of different buckets, but we know that there are many more. And so there are obviously the enterprises, security teams, vulnerability analysts. I guess, Jay, you count as one of those. Government agencies, MSSPs, which are managed security service providers, academic researchers. Who am I missing here? Tool developers, software vendors. So there are a lot of different constituent groups. And to answer your question, no, they're likely to have different points of view and different pressure points. I think the opportunity that we have is to be able to pull them into this conversation and help understand through case studies and user profiles in different scenarios, understand what is the range of customer, or I did it again, customer, I'll change it to consumer. But also, what are their problems? What is it that we can do within the CVE program to improve? And then we can hopefully feed that back into the other working groups and into the public to help us make better decisions. So my suspicion is that the answer is there'll be some commonalities, but my basic gut instinct says that they're going to have some very different answers to our questions.
I just wanted to add to that. It actually presents a challenge, the diversity, because if you're a enterprise customer and you're working on your internal vulnerabilities, you might have different motivations and priorities than, say, an MSSP that Bob talked about, or a tool vendor where you are already aggregating the data and consuming the data and presenting it to an enterprise. There could be differences in there, and there's definitely different priorities for the data and the level of data quality. Typically, if you have a tool vendor and they're aggregating data, they probably have a lot more sources than a typical enterprise. And so maybe the data quality in any single source is a little less important. And then some of the smaller organizations, they're probably a single source. So data quality is incredibly important. And so having, like good patch information is going to be a really big thing for them. Whereas the larger tool vendors maybe are scraping, dozens and dozens of advisories and things like that. They're getting that patch information from other sources. So they might not be as important for them. And so trying to capture these different stakeholders, the different roles, and trying to identify what's important to them, and then trying to figure out how to weight these and sort them and organize them, it's going to be a good learning experience, I think would be the term.
When I think about all the different consumers, and I'm even thinking of like big orgs like ISP, what have
Right.
you. I wondered, were there signups that surprised you? Anything interesting that might surprise me?
So I think there were a number of interesting things that I personally saw, and I want to hear what JL has to say as well. I saw a number of company names that were not from the US, and I thought that was interesting, so I looked them up. By the way, we really want to make this an international initiative, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I saw some of that, and I also saw some, for example, medical companies that I had never heard of before. And my hope is that what we're able to do is to tap into places that are really outside our normal sphere of influence, or outside my Rolodex, if that's a word anybody uses anymore. But I want to be able to hear more from the folks who may not have always found a place to provide their input. And I think this working group may be one of those places. So I've been pleasantly surprised by the variety of different kinds of organizations that have signed up. Jay?
Yeah, I think you capture that well. I think that the diversity, I think, is probably the biggest thing that interests me. Just the sheer volume of people, trying to participate and helping out and stuff like that. And I'm very excited. They're definitely, and we've had 2 meetings already, and the level of passion in the participation is very clear, and I hope that we can maintain that and keep that moving forward. But yeah, I'm really excited about the level of participation and passion that we're seeing.
Really excited about that too, if I could say about it, because one of the things that's true is, as Bob and Jay alluded to, is this, CVE is a global program. It's a global public good, and there are a lot of people that use it. And maybe you're aware we have working groups and didn't really know where to engage and where to participate in the program. And the Consumer Working Group really offers a new platform, an open forum, community forum driven towards hearing their perspective, right? And that's something that I think resonates with a lot of people. And as others have mentioned, one of the challenges that I think we want to continue to work towards is making sure that those that are represented within that group even though it's maybe a subset of the true ecosystem of consumers, that we have the various stakeholder communities represented such that we take into account these many different user types, right? I think Bob was talking about these user stories maybe helping us define. And as the group has kicked off, Jay mentioned we've had an incredible amount of interest, right? And hopefully that will continue. And also we can hopefully ensure that there's representation across the broad different types of consumers of CVE.
Thank you, Alec. I agree. I think this is a great place for people to plug in. And you guys said several things that I love and am very excited about. Medical device security. Bob, love that. Very excited about, so much opportunity in that space, but also, likewise, global participation in the CVE program feels welcome. So I'm really excited to hear the group talk about that. I wanted to ask you one other thing, and as that the patch smarter, not harder concept for this particular working group, and I wondered if you might like to speak to that.
I'd be happy to start. This is Bob. I think that over the last several years, I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of different kinds of defenders in the field. And one of the challenges that they run into, whether they're large enterprises or small not-for-profits, is that they see the volume of CVEs coming out all of the time. And what they'll tell you is that they just can't patch their way out of this problem, that they can't patch all of the things. And I think everybody who's listening who is either a defender or has been one understands exactly what those many constraints might be. And in fact, if you take a look at certain publications, like I was just earlier today looking at the 2024 Verizon Data Breach Report, it has a section there that talks about the vulnerabilities that are first scanned for in the internet honeypots, and they're scanned almost right away after the CVEs are disclosed, within just a few days in many cases. And so they conclude that if you can't patch all the vulnerabilities faster, it seems like the only logical conclusion is to have fewer of them to patch. And so that's where the whole secure by design idea comes from, is this idea that we need to move the responsibility for staying cyber safe further upstream. But you can't improve what you don't measure. And so the CVE program is one of those truly critical things to help us with the secure by design movement. And as you think about the different kinds of customers or downstream consumers, we think about those tool manufacturers who can help organizations large and small think about how to prioritize the remediation efforts that are informed by the way the attacks really work. So that's not a guarantee that you're going to get off scot-free and not going to come into harm's way, but we really need to make sure that the CVE program is providing that vital information to power those engines so that the defenders have a real chance of patching smarter and not just trying to brute force it harder.
Yeah, I don't know what else I could add to that. I did do some research probably 2-3 years ago with Kenna Security, where we simulated this, trying to patch faster instead of harder, and the gain that we saw from having better prioritization, better data, more quality data, more timely data, more accurate data, all of that really helped in patching smarter. And I think that's exactly what we're going to be going after in the Consumer Working Group, trying to identify the data that is really, really helpful and making sure that we can, adjust the CVE program and get it pointing towards the future and helping people work smarter instead of harder.
Guys, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I want to ask you one last question, if I may, and that is there a question that you wish that I had asked you that I did not?
I think, for my mind, the only thing is just really how to go sign up. And you can go to cve.org. There is a button there that takes you to the working group page. And from there, you can find the Consumer Working Group. And then once you join, there's an online calendar that you can subscribe to help make sure that you're attending all of the calls. And then I would also mention that we've staggered the calls. We're doing a little bit of an experiment. So some of them are in the afternoon and some of them are in the morning to help bring in some of the folks from outside the United States. So we'll continue to tune that in order to bring on more international participation.
Thanks for that, Bob. I appreciate it. And thanks, Jay and Alec, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time, and I know our listeners appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us today on the We Speak CVE podcast, which is available for free on Buzzsprout and the CVE website. If you'd like to participate or suggest a topic, please contact us on the CVE website.